You were very instrumental in the merger of Walmart and MASSMART to smooth things over. Can you please give me an update on all those concerns? What were they and how did you address them? Were there any of them that actually surfaced?
The Walmart-MASSMART merger attracted quite a lot of attention. It's understandable. Walmart's a big company. It was a big foreign investment, and MASSMART is a well-known listed retailer. The interventions or the objections mostly came from the unions, and they were appropriately worried about employment issues. And so everything that you saw in the press and read about and at the competition tribunal and at the appeals court were really fundamentally about employment issues. But I think in the end, the parties got together, we came to agreements that were sanctioned by the courts, and the merger, as far as we're concerned, was approved finally at the end of last year. And we've moved on. We're working closely with the Department of Industry and the Department of Agriculture, and I think we're doing a lot of good now.
Your leadership style. MASSMART is quite a big company, organization to run and administer or lead. What skills do you use to do that?
I would say, first of all, it's difficult to talk about your own leadership style. I think other people are better positioned to actually describe that accurately. But the sort of stuff that goes through my head when I'm trying to think about my leadership style is, first of all, to be authentic. You can only act and play out a persona for some time. Really you can only maintain that persona, a false persona, if everything's going well. Really the real you is going to come out at some point. So I'd rather think about trying to act in a very authentic way, be myself, and then manage myself. There are things you have to manage about yourself. So my most important philosophy about leadership style is that we're leading people, really. We're not really leading a company, we're leading people who work in a company, and I should lead a person in the best way for them. So if you hung out with me for a week, you might observe many leadership styles. If I'm with a very senior, confident executive, I'm really more there to ask questions and provide emotional or business support, to listen to that individual and allow them to do what they think is right, with maybe a little bit of guidance one way or the other. But that's very different to perhaps another individual who's perhaps a bit more junior and really needs quite heavy direction because maybe something's gone wrong or they are uncertain about what to do. So I'm rather about having a bunch of tools of leadership styles available to me, and then to apply which one I think appropriate, but all under the heading of authentic. I've got to be me, I can't be anyone else.
So when you work with people, what are the biggest challenges for you to enable you to do your job properly?
I would say that leading people is complicated. I mean, it's as you rise in your career and you move from managing the business to managing and leading people, you really need to become an expert in people, and that's very difficult because everyone's an individual. Humans en masse are quite easy to predict what they're going to do on average, but an individual, it's almost impossible to predict exactly how they're going to behave and actually exactly what they want, and more importantly, to understand how they feel. So I think the greatest challenge about leading people is really trying to get into their heads, try to put yourself in their shoes, imagine what they're feeling, imagine what they're thinking, and then trying to come up with something that makes them perform better. I mean, that's really my only task, is to get someone to perform at their peak.
And where would you like to improve on? If you go home and think, oh gee, I could have done this better today. Are there some areas that you can identify?
Let me give you a contextual example to that. MASSMART's been through an incredibly traumatic time. Over the last 3 years, we've been in a huge transaction with one of the world's biggest companies. We've been in a little bit of a battle against the processes of getting a transaction approved. And all that time, we've been going through massive amount of change. We've now integrated into a Walmart world. And so there's a lot of change going on in the business. So my greatest challenge at the moment is leading people through change, and giving them the confidence to deal with the change, while at the same time undergoing enormous change myself. My job is completely different to what it was 2 years ago. I mean, really completely different. And so when I go home at night and reflect on, how did I do today? It's probably the moments I wish I had handled better was those where it's me who's the person who's suffering from change, trying to lead other people who are suffering from change, and maybe, not doing as good a job as I possibly could have.
When we look at business ethics and principles and philosophies, how aligned are they with your own personal views and philosophies?
Well, let me just answer that directly and say 100% aligned. Part of this growing up as a leader that I've been privileged to do, a business leader, is that I've learned from the philosophies of others, and in particular Mark Lamberti. And he talks a lot about a philosophy which says you can't be a different person at work, you can't be a different person at home, and you can't be a different person when you're with your mates. You are the same person everywhere, and you must find a set of philosophies and values that are consistent amongst those. So, I've certainly learned from that. I'm not different at home than I am at work, and I would hope I'm not viewed differently by my children than by the people who work for me. In the end, if they got together, they would go, yes, we recognize that person. So I have one set of beliefs and values. I don't have multiple.
Just give me a little bit of your history and how did it come about that you become CEO?
Well, I'm an engineer and I love engineering, and I spent my whole childhood, as many engineers do, taking things apart to figure out how they work. And so there was never any question in my mind, by the way, I'd become an engineer. And of course, my father was an engineer, he was a very good engineer. And so in my mind, I was going to follow a technical career. So I imagined success as perhaps being the chief engineer on a mine. I mean, that was my childhood ambition, I would say. I certainly had no interest in retail, maybe even commerce. I didn't really study commerce at all. But my life changed when I got transferred from the mines into the head office of Anglo American and got onto their management trainee program. And there was a brilliant program, and I was hugely privileged. And we were led by what was called the Young Persons Committee of Anglo American. And there was an incredibly brilliant bunch of people. I mean, Bobby Godsell, Clem Sunter, these were the guys, Don Ngube, these are the guys that I met and learned from at a very young age, 24, 25 perhaps. And really my whole life changed then. I was taught about commerce, I studied accounting, I was exposed to business strategy, executive leadership. I sat around in the decision-making forums of Anglo American, who, at that time were by far the leaders of business strategy and leading the business environment. And so I learned an enormous amount and completely changed my life. And from there onwards, started off on a different trajectory, which ended up in retail, but really was fundamentally just about business at that point. Where I ended up, I think, is less important to the fact that I went from a technical environment to a commercial business environment.
Your future, what is up, immediate future and long-term future?
I don't have plans about the future, by the way, and in fact, if I told you my career story, what you would conclude is that everything I planned, none of it came to light. So my plans and what I've achieved are completely two different things, and it's probably made me a little bit cynical about planning too much. My fundamental philosophy is, if you want another opportunity, do your current job the best you can and better than anyone else in the world. And if you're very, very good at what you do and you perform, you'll have lots of opportunities. People will want you to do something else. My problem in my career has never been, what is my next opportunity? It's been, leave me alone in this current job long enough so that I can make a difference, because they always want to pull me somewhere else. And the same exists today. There's more opportunity out there than I can choose with. But really, the way I do it is I just say, let me do a great job now. And I'm not always doing a great job, so I've got things to improve. And then make good jobs about whatever opportunity presents itself. So I actually even don't want to know what my next opportunity is now. I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing now, and that would just merely distract me. So I've closed my mind to future opportunity. A longer question, though, is I'm quite young. I'm not young anymore. Once you go over the 40 mark, you lose that young branding. But for the job I do and for my career, I'm still quite young. So I've got a fundamental problem, which is what to do next. So at some point, my career at MASSMART can come to an end, and I'm certainly going to have enough years almost to have another career. So I've got to find something else to do after this, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'll worry about that when I get there.